I have a confession to make. I'm having an affair. Literally having a year-long love affair with Ernest Holmes. I didn't even bother to check with my wife and see if it was okay.
Come on.
If you happen to be a Facebook user, I started a group called Science of Mind in 1 year. Reverend Dr. Edward Villiam up in Santa Rosa went through, I don't know exactly when he did it, but in the front of the Science of Mind, the Philosophy of Faith, the Way of Life, you'll see that he's outlined different readings for every day for an entire year. So what came to me to do using Facebook was to make a public group and to put the written up there and then to actually do little slides and an audio recording to go with it. So that is on this Facebook group. It's a public group. You're welcome to join it and begin this practice with us. People are commenting and sharing what comes up for them. And I think the most thrilling part of this to me is not those of us that are already in Science of Mind that are doing it. I got a whole bunch of peeps back in North Carolina that have never stepped foot in a Science of Mind center that are studying this stuff. And I'm just like, all right. I'm just going to like it. I'm not going to say nothing about how amazing it is, because when you do that, people run away. You know, they like, want to check it out, but just don't notice me, so I'm just not going to notice. So if they're watching this recording, well, I'm busted, I know this. So this month, we've been studying our foundation. What it is, how it works, what it does. And today we're looking at how to use it. And whether you realize it or not, what we've actually been doing is learning the steps of treatment. First step, what is it? Second step, I'm that. Third step, what it does. What we speak into it, it does. And if that doesn't bring you to gratitude, come see me. We have some work to do together. The only thing we do, the only place where there's action in a spiritual mind treatment is the last step, letting go. That's all we, as the human part of that treatment, does. The rest is acknowledging and embracing creation as us, doing its thing as us. And it's important to understand that, because our ego, and I want to reinforce this every time I say it, love your ego. You wouldn't be here without it. Literally. You want to throw your life into complete discord, run around hating the thing that makes you here. You're going to have a really rough time. Okay? So love your ego and get to know it. Because it's either driving your vehicle or it's a passenger. And if you want to get clear on which it is, pay attention to where your life's going. If you're confused about the things that are happening in your life, chances are the survival ego is driving the bus without your consent. And it's not going to confer with you on where it's going. Because it doesn't operate that way. Its only purpose is to keep you alive. That's its only job. And so it anchors in survival. And it anchors in comfort. And so the very idea of spiritual growth scares the bejabbers out of our ego. So instantly, there's this argument. How do you know? Look at your life. If it's in chaos, you might have a little argument happening there between your spiritual self and your ego self. Don't make either one bad or wrong. It just means you need to have a conversation with yourself and get in alignment. I love the first in the chapter, how to use it. Ernest Holmes' first sentence. One of the great difficulties of the new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. We are a heady bunch. And sometimes our head helps us avoid our heart. See, my head doesn't have any feelings. My head doesn't have any emotions. I can theorize with the best of you and never feel a thing. And then when I think I've won, the only feeling I have is arrogance. The heart, on the other hand, a whole different thing. I realized yesterday, I was like, I don't know what's happening. It's like all of a sudden it's just like the slightest little thing and I'm teary. I'm like, the bigger my heart gets, the more moisture it pushes out the corner of my eyes. It's my story and I'm sticking to it. But I think there's truth in that. That as we allow our hearts to open, it changes us. It changes how we see things, how we experience things. It has to, because that's principle in action. If you think you have ever seen spiritual principle, you haven't. What you've seen is the result of spiritual principle. Principle is invisible, so stop looking for it. It's already in you. It is a knowingness that was born in you. It is an intelligence that was born in you. It is abundance that was born in you. Quite honestly, it is you. There's nowhere to look. No one else has a different principle than you have. You get that? You can learn from other people, but you cannot get more principle from someone else. Because that suggests that they got more divinity than you got. Ain't a word of truth in it. Not a word. So our job, if you will, is to find every little nook and cranny of divinity that was born in me and embrace that. Because here's the good news and the bad news. How to use it is really a misnomer because you're using it. You can't not use it. And if you are alive and breathing, you are using the properties of creation because you are that informed. What you believe is going into the law and is manifesting something. Not 8 hours a day, not when you think about it, not when you're aware of it, all the time. All the time. Thomas Troward, creation happened one time and it's endless. Wrap your head around that. It started and it is still happening. It has no end. So if we are that informed, it stands to reason that it's happening. Now we can be unaware of that and avoid consciously using it, but we can't avoid using it. If you have the Science of Mind book, go home and mark the bottom of page 52. Because if you've ever had that moment like most of us where this stuff doesn't work, Ernest Holmes knew us. He knew humanity. So here's what he says. Hence it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does, only it does according to our belief that it will not. Surprise! That is the clearest example that I have ever seen that really demonstrates it works. Period. Even when okay, here you go. And it's that instant, folks. It's that instant. Whatever you believe goes into... Now, and understand, the law is not separate from creation any more than my arm is separate from my body. It's simply a different aspect. Okay? So when I believe it, that is right into the law, and the law has no opinion. If you're waiting from some feedback from the divine law that goes, you might want to rethink that, it's not going to happen. All it does is go, you got it. That's the function of the law. And it has to be that way, or we don't have free will. It has to be that way. Otherwise, we'd just be little automatons. Okay? Now, we're at choice. We can pay attention to what we're putting in the law, or we can and be spiritual victims. But rest assured, you are consenting to be a spiritual victim if you do that. Because you are in charge of you. Okay? I am not. I will never be. If I am the greatest authority you have, the situation is already way worse than you thought. My job is to help you find your answers, not to give you my answers. I don't have answers for you. I do have a pretty astute question machine to spot, wonder if they thought about this. Wonder if you thought about that. That's my job. It's not to tell you what to think. It's to teach you how to think. It's to teach you how to find what you already know. Because if you are like everybody else, the divine informed, what in the world do I have to add? Nothing. There's nothing missing. You can't add more perfection to perfection. It's already there. So the flip side of that is stop looking for someone else to tell you who you are. You already know. You just don't know you know. One of the things that we are uncomfortably good at in New Thought is spiritual bypass. We don't want to look at the stuff that we, not the divine, get really clear. The divine doesn't judge anything we think, feel, say, or do as good or bad. We do that. It doesn't. So if you think God's displeased with you, you don't understand God. See, because we have free will, God doesn't know what we're going to do till we do it. It doesn't have an agenda for your life. Its agenda is your life. See, what it wants is to experience itself as you. And if it told you what that was, well, now it's not really accomplishing what it wants, is it? But it's easier and far more comfortable for me to set up and I'm going to say this and then hope I don't have to duck. We're setting up spiritual victimhood when we look to something outside of ourselves called God to tell us what to do. Because see, then when it doesn't work, I can blame God and still take no responsibility for my life. We're far more comfortable with the F word than we are the R word. Which is kind of interesting. You are responsible. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. Doesn't matter if you accept it or not. It doesn't change that you are. It just changes that you're participating consciously in your responsibility. So just know there's nowhere to hide. Ernest Holmes flat talks about it's easy to walk around saying there's no sick people. It's easy. It's a lie. The truth is there's no sickness in principle. That's true. But if you fall down and break your leg and the bone is sticking out the side of your leg, you have a broken leg. It doesn't mean that spiritually you are now incomplete or something's wrong. It means you're in a human vehicle that has bones. One of them is broken. Please go to the hospital or wherever you get treatment. And my experience has been the people that go to that place of there are no sick people, there is no poverty, aren't in it. Did you catch that? Yeah. People who say there is no racism. Not for you. Because you have white skin. I personally, and I want to be really clear here, I'm not saying no person of color has ever said it. I'm saying I have never heard one say there's no racism. Because they live with the effects of racism every day. It's easy when you're straight to say there's no homophobia. Because it's not threatening you. There is racism. There is homophobia. Because there are people with belief systems. And the way this works is so simple. If I believe it, it goes into the law and it comes out as manifestation. So if a human being believes that someone who looks different than me is less than me, guess what shows up? A society of demonstrations that say you're less than. So can we just quit politicizing creation to avoid it and take responsibility for what's in consciousness? And this idea of, well, I'm not the one thinking that, so there's nothing for me to do. Really? How many minds are there? You don't get to play there's only one mind game at Christmas time. And then when you dislike something, oh, I didn't think that. Now, yes, the human you maybe has a different belief system. Think of it for a moment like a pot of soup. Okay? If you take the salt shaker, I don't care where you put the salt in the soup, it's going to flavor the whole pot. Yes? That's how we clean up the collective consciousness. We change the flavor, one dash of salt at a time. Quit worrying about what is in somebody else's consciousness because, quite honestly, it's none of your business. It's not. Quit correcting one another. Take that energy where when someone says something and you want to go, there are no sick people. Take that energy and look at your stuff. Because whatever belief just gave you the idea that it was okay to correct someone else's consciousness, start your work there. start your work there. Because your consciousness is your business, and that's only your business. And what's in somebody else's consciousness is none of your business. Stay in your own lane. Because when you get out of your lane, what happens? We have wrecks. And we make each other an emotional wreck. And we create blocks between one another. If you clean up your consciousness, and I clean up my consciousness, eventually the soup is the perfect flavor. Another analogy. You take a jar, put a little bit of sediment in the bottom, and just turn on a slow drip. Eventually, that will run clear. Because it's just displacement. It has to. Now, if you shake it up, even with the same drip, it's going to get more clear faster. So quit being afraid to shake yourself up. Okay? Get out of your comfort zone. I promise you'll be all right. It's just thoughts. And here's the real trick. If I take that same jar and I shake it up so now everything's a little more awake in there, and then I turn the tap open, that's going to get really clear really quick. How you use it is you embrace it. It cannot do something through you that you don't believe, that you haven't embodied. If your God is still out here, your first order of business is to bridge that gap. There's a lot of messed up stuff in organized religion. I'm not excluding us. And there's a lot that was messed up with my Pentecostal upbringing. But the gift that I got was an I-thou relationship. I know what the divine feels like in every fiber of my being. We don't talk enough about that in Science of Mind. We're a really heady bunch. I'm inviting you to drop into your heart, to know who lives there. Because that same who lives in every heart in this room. And if I will know my heart, then I have to know your heart. And then I'm no longer fooled by your behavior. I may dislike your behavior, but I'm not fooled by it. I stop thinking that that's who you really are because I know better. That's how we use this thing. I invite you to go inward for just a minute. One of the things Ernest talks about in this chapter on how to use it is if you're unclear, you grab hold of somebody else's prayer and you make it your own. And this is the example that he gives. I am a center in the divine mind, a point of God-conscious life, truth and action. My affairs are divinely guided and guarded into right action, into correct results. Everything I do, say, or think is stimulated by the truth. There is power in this word that I speak because it is of truth and it is the truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and my affairs. All belief in wrong action is dispelled and made negative. Right action alone has power, and right action is power, and power is God, the living Spirit Almighty. This Spirit animates everything that I do, say, or think. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am consciously directed. I am compelled to do right things at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. All suggestion of age, poverty, limitation, or unhappiness is uprooted from my mind and cannot gain entrance to my thought. I am happy, well, and filled with perfect life. I live in the spirit of truth and am conscious of the spirit of truth lives in me. My word is the law unto its own manifestation, and will bring to me or cause me to be brought to its fulfillment. There is no unbelief, no doubt, no uncertainty. I know, and I know that I know. Every thought of doubt vanishes from my mind, that I may know the truth, and the truth may make me free. And so it is.